World History, Part 8, World War I, Causes, Warfare, Aftermath, and Between the Wars, by Think Sapling. Really quickly, we're going to be going through the disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. It is not political, not opinion-based, and not meant to take any side. I'm only explaining school curriculum topics in a simple and factual way. So today we're going to be going through the World War I causes, the World War I warfare and technology, the end of World War I and the legacy, and between the wars. So first we're going to start off with World War I causes. The causes of World War I. It was the first war to span over 6 continents and pull in soldiers from around the war. Lingering issues from World War I go to World War II, the bomb drops. M.A.N.I.A is actually an acronym for people to remember in school, the causes of World War I. And this is what it stands for, right? So we got M.A.N.I.A. M is militarism. Countries train more soldiers, build more weapons and military supplies. This creates mass paranoia. A stands for alliances. Secret alliances were formed that went into effect when war broke out. The Triple Alliance, which was Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottomans. And the Triple Entente, the France, Great Britain, and Russia. N stands for nationalism. Nations had intense pride for their country and heritage. There was a mass delusion that made the European war seem necessary and winnable. I stands for imperialism. Nations used their colonies to provide more soldiers and more resources. Territorial acquisitions strained international relations between European powers. And A was assassination. On June 28, 1914, the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, gets assassinated. This event starts World War I. The First Global War. European colonies, such as India, Algeria, and Morocco, supplied troops. Battles in Africa and the Middle East. And Japan joined while Russia exited, and that was the Bolshevik Revolution, and then the U.S. entered. Okay, now we're going to go to the World War I warfare and technology. World War I, a turning point. It was the first global-scale war with new deadly weapons. It changed military strategies permanently. New weapons. Machine guns fired about 500 rounds per minute. They made open field attacks impossible and led to trench warfare. Poison gas was made of chlorine, phosgene, and mustard gas. It caused suffocation, blindness, and death. Gas masks were used, but then they were banned in 1925 in the Geneva Convention. Trench warfare. Armies dug trenches for protection. There was a no-man's land, which meant a deadly zone between the trenches. There were miserable conditions, such as rats, lice, filth, hunger, and weather. There were diseases, such as trench foot, gas injuries, and shell shock, which was emotional collapses. Tanks, by 1918, helped end trench warfare. Land, sea, and air. Tanks, which were unreliable but effective later in war. There were submarines, or U-boats, which attacked supply and passenger ships, and airplanes, which were used for spying, later bombing. Diseases. The Spanish flu from 1918 to 1919. It killed about 50 million worldwide, more than World War I, and spread through troops and crowded camps. The trench foot was from wet, cold trenches, which caused swelling, infection, and amputations. The end of World War I and the legacy. Russia leaves. In 1917, the economy of Russia collapsed due to a strain of war. There were food shortages in major urban centers, which led to civil unrest. In December 1917, war casualties and factors above led to the Bolshevik Revolution. The result was it turns to communism under Lenin. Russia signs the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk and withdraws from the war. It allows Germany to focus on the Western Front. The U.S. enters. In 1917, the U.S. enters because Lusitania, a British passenger ship, was sunk by the German U-boats, and they carried ammunition. The Zimmermann telegram was Germany offering Mexico U.S. territory such as Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona in exchange for alliance. The U.S. was originally neutral, and it was not our problem. But in 1916, Woodrow Wilson ran because he kept us out of the war and wanted to protect trading rights. The war ends. In 1918, the war ends. The German weakness was troops and the supplies were exhausted. There was also the Spanish flu pandemic, a global outbreak during the war's end. There's also Armistice Day, was November 11th, 1918, when the fighting stops. The Paris Peace Conference was led by the U.S., Britain, and Italy to establish post-war peace. The Treaty of Versailles was drafted to formally end the war. The Treaty of Versailles. Basically, it was punishments for Germany in 1919. It was to return Alsace-Lorraine to France. The military was limited to 100,000 troops. They must sign the war guilt clause, or basically take blame, and pay $33 billion in war reparations. The League of Nations. It was created to prevent future wars, and 9 new nations were formed. Weaknesses and consequences. Germany was humiliated, which led to the depression, which led to the rise of Hitler. Ho Chi Minh was ignored, the seeds of the Vietnam War, and Russia was excluded, the rise of communism and first Red Scare in the U.S. Between the wars. After the war, Treaty of Versailles. Many countries felt that the treaty was unfair. Germany was heavily punished, and economic depression led to resentment. The League of Nations was created, but it didn't prevent conflict. After the war, the Soviet Union, Russia. Russia suffered greatly after World War I. Lenin created the communist USSR in 1917. Stalin took over in 1924. The USSR turns into industrial power. The Great Purge was Stalin leading brutal political campaign, about 750,000 executed. The 5-year plan was that the USSR would develop heavy industry and collectivizing agriculture. Germany. The Weimar Republic was blamed for Versailles. Hyperinflation from printing money for reparations, and the German mark becomes almost worthless. The Middle East. The Ottoman Empire collapses in 1923. There's also the American Genocide, and Europe redraws borders. Ethnic religious conflict created that continues today. Japan. It gains German possessions in Asia, invades China in 1937, and the Nanjing Massacre, 40,000 to 300,000 killed. Economy. Europe was devastated and in huge debt. U.S. and Japan prospered in the 1920s. The Great Depression in 1929 was when the stock market crashed in the U.S. There became a global economic collapse with high unemployment. There was a growing fear of communism as communist parties promised jobs and food. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this one, and please watch the whole World History series for more information. By Thanks Sapling.